Happy Canada Day, eh? That's a lot harder to say than you actually think. Welcome back, it's Chala from PS I Love You. Thank you so much for joining me. We are celebrating with Scrap and Stamp Canada today, and I'm so excited because our team members have really come up with some fantastic Canada themed cards. And we also have some great prizes, and I have one personally that I'll tell you about later on in this tutorial. So I do have to let you know that my original card that I had planned almost didn't happen. I had purchased a stamp set way back in March with the hopes of using it in this blog hop because it's kind of Canada themed, and it didn't arrive. So when I was making my cards for the blog originally, I had to come up with some other ideas, and then last night at the last minute the stamp set arrived. Hallelujah. So I was so excited to quickly come up with it to show you. And this is the set here. It's the Hero Arts Mountain Layers by the Lake, I believe is what it's called. It's the bundle with the dies, and I love the set because it has some great mountain layering as well as the trees. It has some great sentiments, and it has those dies. Now, the reason why I'm so excited about this is this stamp set was actually originally released, I believe, last year at this time, and they have, Hero Arts has actually re-released it. So for this year and for 2020, and that's amazing. I'm so excited about that because I thought for a while there I wasn't be able to get it at all. So I have what I'm going to show you here is the Distress Oxide inks that I'm going to be using to create my background. So I wanted to create a beautiful Rocky Mountain sunset. And I start out by using the Squeezed Lemonade Distress Oxide color, and I'm using the regular blending tool. I started out using this. I do actually switch back and forth between the Picket Fence blending brushes and this tool just to be able to get the right blend and the thin layers that I wanted with the ink. So starting off in the upper right hand corner, that's where I really want the brightest color to be, where the sun is coming from, and then I will work my way kind of down towards the left, getting a little bit darker with my colors. The next color that I'm using here is the, what is it? I believe it's the Spiced Marmalade, and then I'll also be using the Seedless Preserves and the Wilted Violet. So again, as I said, I'm starting off with the regular blending tool, and then I'll be switching to the Picket Fence blending brushes to go back and forth. So instead of us sitting here watching the whole thing in real time, I'm going to speed it up so that we can get on to the other elements of the card. Now, I should also mention I'm using my Wendy Vecchi Make Art Station. I love using this kind of platform to do my ink blending on because it does have the four large big round magnets as well as the magnetic ruler that I'm using, and that allows me just to really keep my project in place when I'm doing all that ink blending. I really like not having to chase my paper around my craft desk. So my big surprise, oh sorry, I'm also bringing in worn lipstick. I wanted to add a little bit of pink as well to this. So my big prize reveal is I have I believe it's a full set of Picket Fence blending brushes. So if you would like to win a set of these Picket Fence blending brushes, there is going to be a bonus card at the end of this video. And so there's a few things that you're going to have to do. You're going to have to tell me what the theme of the card is. You need to comment on what that card is in the comments below. You also need to head over to my Instagram page and comment there. Hopefully you can find that link. I'll have it down below. And then I'll get all the names of everyone who has entered it correctly, and I'll do a draw. So make sure that when I do mention your name, if you've won, to respond to me so that I can get your address and send it out to you. All right, so moving along here, I've almost finished the ink blending, again going back and forth between those two types of blending brushes. And now I want to work on doing the actual layering of the stamps. I have this amazing little kind of catalog here of all the inks that I have, and my wonderful mother stamped them out and categorized them and put them in rainbow order for me. She's just so amazing, and this allows me to quickly go through the stamp colors that I have and figure out what colors I want to use. So this was very helpful in trying to find the perfect trees and mountain colors for what I wanted to use. So if you have a large catalog or a large products of stamps and you want to catalog them, this is a great way to do that. All right, so I've got the colors in my mind that I know that I want to use, and I'm going to go ahead and pull those out. I've got the stamp set that I want to use, and I want to put it at the bottom with the mountains and the trees, just kind of going back and forth between them, layering them up. So I'll be doing this on a separate piece of cardstock. This is just the Nina Solar White Classic Crest cardstock. I think this is the 80 pound that I'm using. All right, so now that I have the images out that I want to use, I'm going to start off by stamping the mountain, and I'll have the colors and everything listed hopefully below, but if not, it'll be over on my blog as well, so make sure you head over there and you can check out the colors that I'm using. I did use a whole bunch. I pulled out some and then a whole ton more. So we're starting off with the background layer of the stamp set, and I wanted to kind of have it go into kind of like a purpley gray mountain. The photo that I was kind of using for reference, which I highly recommend if you're trying to recreate a scene, find a photo that you like for reference and kind of recreate that. But it kind of went from the yellow, orange, pink to kind of like an indigo purple. So the colors that I used for this mountain, I believe, was the faded jeans and the chipped sapphire. So one is the main base layer of the mountain, and then the other is the kind of like the highlights, sorry, of the mountain. And when I had originally stamped this down, the highlights down, I didn't get enough of a contrast between the two colors. So I'll actually be pulling out the Hero Arts Unicorn White to do the highlights on top of the mountain. I actually got that Hero Arts cube, I think, in one of the monthly kits from Hero Arts, so I was happy to have that on hand to be able to bring out those highlights a bit more to make it stand out. So you'll see here that I'll go ahead and do that. I really like the look of that white on top so much better than the darker color that I originally had. So just cleaning my stamp off. Now I should also mention, because these are brand new stamps, sometimes what you want to do is kind of prime them. So I like to wipe them with a microfiber cloth first, just to remove, or really just kind of to dirty them so that the ink sticks to the stamp better. The more you use your stamp, the better seasoned it becomes. It's like your good old cast iron frying pan. The more you cook in it and the less you clean it, the better it is. However, I do have troubles leaving my stamps dirty. I can't do that. I do have to clean them off each time. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're not getting a good layer of or a good impression of the ink on your project. That's probably because your stamp needs to be kind of seasoned. All right, so I now have moved on to the trees, and I do stamp the trees in two different ways. The first way I'm doing here is I start off with the darker color, and then I move to the second layer being a bit lighter. I wasn't sure how that was going to work. I wanted a little bit of kind of a look of the fall, really, is like the changing of the leaves. That's one of my favorite times of year, is fall. And so I wanted some greens and I wanted some yellows and oranges, or just kind of also giving a hint of the sunshine kind of reflecting off the trees as well. So I'll make sure again that I link all the colors that I'm using over on the blog, and I'll try and remember to link them down below. So for the next layer, I'm just lining it up. So when you see me pull the stamp platform off screen, that's because I'm trying to line up the next layer onto the stamp so that it lines up perfectly. I thought that was better than having my big old head in the way. And so this one here is the two different colors of greens. And I like it. It's hard to see in the video, but it does give a lot of dimension and kind of depth to the look of that stamp. And that's one of the things that Hero Arts does so amazingly well with their layering stamps, is the amount of detail that you can get with them is just stunning. Like their one that they had, I believe it was in 2018, with the beach. It was the one where you could have hello in the sand, like that, just stunning. I'm always amazed at the detail that they put into their products. All right, so here I am trying to add a little bit of the yellow or orange on top of kind of the tips of the tree. So I'm not applying this color to the entire stamp, just really to the tips. And it didn't layer on top as nicely as I wanted because this is a dye ink as opposed to a pigment ink. The dye inks soak into the paper more, whereas pigment inks will tend to kind of sit on top of each other. So what I'll do is I'll just switch it around on the next stamping that I'll do. I'll make sure I get those oranges and yellows in there. Again, I'm trying just with kind of a brighter yellow to see if that makes a difference. It didn't, so yeah, lesson learned. You never know, certain types of inks react differently, like different brands, so I thought I'd give this one a try. All right, so now that I have this one done, I can go ahead and move on to the next set of trees and mountains, and I'm going to stamp those with some different colors just to give a variety of colors to this card. I want to do the very Canadian thing here and apologize to you guys if you hear any background noise. It is Canada Day, and I'm trying desperately to get this voiceover and video and blog done before it's due here in the afternoon, and everybody is home. We've got kids running around, their friends are over, we've got piano being practiced in the background. As I said, I craft through the chaos of my life, so it is what it is, right? That's one of the things I love about Canada is we are a very kind and polite nation. We always seem to be apologizing for something, even if we don't have to, and I know I shouldn't have to apologize for my life, but I know sometimes people don't like to hear that in the background when they're watching videos. All right, so we're going to move on here. I'm using the lighter colors for this next set of trees, the yellows and the oranges. This gives a brighter look to the scene card that I'm creating. I didn't want everything to just be really, really dark. I also wanted to give it, again, the look of the sun kind of bouncing off some of those treetops. The other thing I want to show you, and I think what I'll do is go ahead and speed this up because you've seen how this is layered already. I want to talk about kind of using these stamps also in a little bit different way, and I'll show you that. All right, I have here the stamp of the mountains, and what I'm going to do is, you can see the edge that you normally put down. It's a little blurry there, sorry. I'm actually going to flip it over, so I'm going to stamp on the wrong side of the stamp. And the reason why I'm doing that is because it will give a little bit different look to the mountains, a little bit different layer. It'll look like almost like another set of mountains in the background. So it gives almost like I guess a shadow or another layer to it. So you can see it here. It doesn't look like much, but when I flip the stamp over and use it properly, it gives it just another different look to the mountains in another different layer. Now, they're not supposed to be used like that, but it's just something that I had noticed. I thought, well, let's give it a try. If I flip it over, does that give it another different look to the mountains? And you'll see when I stamp down, so I've stamped down the bottom layer the wrong way. Now I'm going to stamp it down the correct way, and then I'll add the other layer the correct way on top. Hopefully that makes sense. That was kind of more confusing than I had thought, but again, it just gives it a different way to use the stamp. I like to kind of look at my stamps in different ways. How can I use them differently than maybe they were intended? So there you can kind of see it gives almost like the look of another mountain in behind, kind of a lighter look, a misty look. So I think that's a really cool way. Again, look at your stamps differently, figure out different ways that you can use them together to stretch their use. I think that's kind of a cool look. I like it. And then you can see with that other top layer on top, I stamped it with a couple different colors there just to give it a look. And now we're going to head into using these great dies that come along with it. So on the left is the dies that we're going to use, and on the right is kind of the bonus dies. I'm not going to use the bonus dies today. Those ones you can actually, they don't line up with any of these stamps, but you can use them to cut out different cardstocks and then do further ink blending on them. At least I didn't find that they lined up with any of these stamps. Maybe they do, maybe I just was using it wrong, I don't know. But the ones on the left to me seem to work. Now, some people like the look of a white outline around their die cuts, and some people don't. For this one, because I'm going to be layering these images one on top of each other, I don't really want that white outline. So what I'm going to do in this instance is when I line my die up, I'm going to line it up closer to the actual ink stamping, which means I'll bring it down. I may trim some of that ink off the very top of the mountains or the trees, but that's okay. On the mountains that I stamped backwards than frontwards to give this different uses of the stamps, there will be more of a white outline around them. So as you can see here, I'm not sure what happened. We jumped ahead. I've done all the die cutting, and I'm using my Gina K Connect glue to now adhere these die cut images to my card and create the scene. What I did originally is I lined all the die cuts up. I took a picture of it. That way it helps me when I'm trying to lay them all back down where I wanted them to go. Now some tweaking will happen. That usually seems to be the way, which is fine, but it gives me the general idea of where I wanted everything to be adhered. Now on some of those, as I mentioned, on that mountain on the left, closer to the bottom, you can see more of a white outline. I really didn't like the way that looked, so I will peel it up, trim off a little closer to the actual ink just to get rid of that. Not a big deal. Some people don't mind it. I just didn't like it for the look of this card. As you saw, I had originally had the MFT wonky die frame set out over top as I was trying to frame out my scene. I've gone ahead and trimmed this panel down and die cut it with that frame die, and now I'm going to adhere that onto some smoke gray cardstock just to bring in a little bit more of that gray, and it helps that sunset just seem to pop a little bit more. Trying to get that lined up perfectly in my not so perfect world. And then I just used a tape runner for that. And now what I can do is move on to my sentiments. Now I want to do heat embossing with this, and because I'm doing heat embossing and I did all that Distress Oxide blending, I really want to make sure that all that ink on the background is dry. If I go ahead and put embossing powder, like if I stamp and then put my embossing powder down, it's going to stick wherever that ink is still wet. So I really, really want to make sure it's dry. And how I do that is I'm going to line my sentiment up where I want it to be first and get it all set up in my stamp platform. And then I'm going to bring in some white embossing powder. I'm not going to be using the white embossing powder, like I'm not going to heat set it. I am just using it simply to help me see where this ink might still be wet. I have a hard time seeing it with the clear embossing powder, so I'm just using the white for this. And then I've got that big powder dollar store brush that I use just to brush any excess away. It was sticking in some places, so I brushed that off, and then I will set that ink again, and I'm going to apply some more. Take a look, is it sticking anywhere? No, everything seemed to be fine, so I just brush off that white embossing powder. Now the key is to remember that that's not the embossing powder I want to use. I started going ahead and treating it with my anti-static powder tool as that extra layer of security, just to make sure that nothing does stick, and I checked it one more time, and then I realized, oh, that's still the white embossing powder. I need to switch over to the clear that I want to use. So I go ahead and grab the clear as well as my VersaFine Clear Nocturne ink. If you watch any of my videos or read the blogs, you know that this is my absolute favorite sentiment ink. The ink pad is perfectly juicy and not overly juicy. It is just absolutely perfect. That's the only word I can describe about this ink. So I've stamped that down. It says, "Greetings from my happy place, camping in the mountains and seeing those beautiful sunsets here in Canada is my absolute happy place. It's where I love to be, and I'm looking forward to, in a couple weeks, going out camping and spending that time with my family in our wonderful backyard." So what we're going to do is just heat set this. It gives it that beautiful glossy, shiny sentiment. I'm going to be adding some birds to the background. I'm not going to heat emboss those. I'll just simply have those in the black ink. Look at that. That is so beautiful. I love how that ink blending turned out. I love the layering. And here's a trick for you. When I'm adding further details with these little birds, I'm not sure where I want them placed, so I use a piece of acetate and I'll stamp them down just to see if it looks good. I don't want to ruin my project at this point, and I kind of like how that looks. So I have 2 of those birds there is from this stamp set, and the other cluster of birds is from the set that I mentioned earlier that came out in 2018, The Beach. I can't remember the name of it. I will try and link it down below. But I liked how the different looks of those birds. The V-shaped ones look like they're further away, and the more detailed ones look closer up. Look at that. That's just beautiful. So that's my little trick, is if you're not sure where you want to stamp kind of your little embellishments, use the acetate. All right, so here are these original cards that I had sort of prepared. As you can see, I'm matching with this one. It says, "Sorry, this is Canadiana" to me. I've got that flocking transfer sheet that I used for the fuzzy bits of this card. And these are really great. I love adding flocking to my cards. I did the "sorry," and inside I thought it would be really clever and say, "Sorry, this card took so long to get to you," because here in Canada we call our winter hats toques. So what I did is, that was the finished card. I'll just show you how I created this. This one was done with my silhouette machine. However, you can cut them out, just fussy cutting them and creating them. I love this pattern paper. It actually looks like knit yarn, and I thought that would be fun as I show you how I created this. This is just a toque that I kind of welded the 2 images together so that I could create the fold. And when you're cutting flocking with your silhouette machine, you need to be extremely careful. You need to remember to have like a piece of scrap paper down on your sticky mat that you put into either your Cricut or your silhouette machine. And you need to lay a piece of foolscap or scrap paper down, and then you're going to lay your flocking fuzzy side down on top of that scrap paper. You don't want to put the flocking directly onto the adhesive, or it will stick to your carrier mat and ruin your flocking and your mat. So this just makes sure that your project, when you pull it through, you want to cut from the back side upside down and have a piece there. If you cut with it fuzzy side up, your blade will actually pull off all the flocking and it just makes a mess. I have a video where I show that more in detail, and I'll remember to try to link to that up here on the upper right hand corner for you, so I'm not just babbling. You'll understand what I'm talking about. So really simply just layering this down. We don't tend to think of shaped cards enough. Sometimes we just get stuck on our little A2 size happy world. I thought it would be fun to do a shaped card as a toque, very Canadiana, the toque, and I just thought adding the flocking would be a fun fuzzy element. And of course I had to add the word "sorry" because, again, we always apologize. So this one was really simple and fun. Adding your own little sentiments inside really makes your card more special and one of a kind, I think. So again, this is the finished card. And I thought I was really clever saying, you know, sorry, it took me so long to get this card to you. My husband didn't think I was funny at all, but that's okay. Okay, for this next card, I'm using this super fun MFT stamp set called Sweater Weather in the Woods. Look at these little images. They are so Canadian. I love it. Now I'm going to warn you, this card is a naughty card. So if you don't like that sort of thing, you might want to stop watching right now or skip ahead. So on this one, I looked at the little beaver and I thought, oh yes, we need to use this little beaver. He is adorable. And I've used him before where I created this mask, and that's using the Gina K Masking Magic paper. And I had him pre-stamped, which is great. And of course had to use the little toque. And I want that to be on top. So whatever you want to show on top, you need to stamp down first. So I lined it up to that mask to make sure his little hat was in the right place. Closed my lid so that the little stamp is on there. And now what I can do is I can remove the mask. I don't want to remove it all the way though. I'm just going to fold it down because the image is small and I want to make sure that I can replace my beaver back in the exact place so that he's wearing his hat properly. I can use the Memento ink to stamp this down, and I'm using Memento because I am using an alcohol ink marker, so I'm using my Copic markers to color this in. Go ahead and stamp that down. Now what I can do is I can replace that mask back up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fold it back up to make sure that I line up that little beaver stamp in the same place that it was before so that he's wearing his little toque. Just line that up. And then I can close the lid. Now I can remove that beaver mask. But the important thing that you want to remember is you're not done. You have to replace that mask with the toque mask, or the mask for the little hat, because if you go to stamp your beaver down right away, his head is going to stamp over top of that hat. So you have to put a mask on top of the hat to protect it, so it still looks like it's in the front or in the foreground. And then go ahead and stamp up your little beaver. And then you've got your little image wearing a hat. So cute. I've gone ahead and done the Copic coloring off screen, and I've cut my strips of red cardstock to form the outer banners of our Canadian flag. I'm just going to adhere this with some liquid adhesive on the sides to finish off creating our beaver flag. I think this is so adorable. I love how he got colored up. I think he looks so super cute. And now what I want to do is just do some simple hand lettering on the front of this card, and I just simply want it to say, "Oh Canada." I don't have any stamps that say this, and the letters that I have in my stash are just a little bit big and they just didn't seem to suit the style of this card. So I just simply traced out with my pencil, and then I will go over top of it with a Copic liner. And here's a look at the finished card. Oh Canada, the only place you can ask a woman for a piece of her beaver tail and not get slapped. Just for clarification's sake, a beaver tail in Canada is actually a donut-like pastry in the shape of a beaver tail. And here's a look at the other cards we created today, the toque card, as well as that beautiful Rocky Mountain sunset scene. I hope you've enjoyed today's cards, and if you've stuck around this long, here's your chance to win that secret prize. Alright, for your chance to win that set of Picket Fence blending brushes, tell me what company this card pays homage to. I want you to comment in the YouTube section down below. Make sure that you like this video as well as subscribe so you don't miss any more. And then head on over to my Instagram as well and make sure that you post the answer there. For all the blog participant links, you can catch them down below or over at my blog post. I hope you guys have had a wonderful Canada Day and that you can check out some of these other videos. Thanks so much and take care.